From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NOCO, your daily slice of Northern Colorado news and happenings. It's Friday, November 10th. I'm Erin O'Toole. There is so much going on behind the scenes when you sit down at a restaurant. In the back of the house, cooks are rushing to prep, cook, and plate your food. Dishwashers are trying to keep pace with those cooks and with hungry diners. Meanwhile, in the front of the house, the servers are sweating too. They're deciphering complex requests, running through mazes of tables, chairs, and people, all to deliver your food without a hitch. It's a lot of work, all while the clock is ticking. And finding people to do this work has gotten tough. Beyond the usual frenzied nature of the job, the long hours, the physical demands, inflation is hitting the industry hard.
In the month of August, Colorado saw the highest restaurant inflation in the country, 24% compared with 9%, which was the national average. 9% is still incredibly high. We're quite a factor higher than that.
That's Laura Shunk, president of the nonprofit Colorado Restaurant Foundation. She says inflation is stressing almost every aspect of the restaurant business.
We're definitely seeing it in restaurant bottom lines. We're seeing it on menu prices. If you've noticed that menu prices are going up, it's because every cost in the restaurant is going up. And I think one of the phenomenons we're seeing right now is just because a restaurant's busy doesn't mean it's a healthy business right now. We're in a moment of instability, still trying to find equilibrium after the pandemic.
And one key aspect of Shunk's work is helping restaurateurs find solutions to these challenges.
First of all, this is a huge industry. Pre-pandemic and even now, it's been about 10% of the state labor force. So you're talking about an industry that obviously was massively impacted during the pandemic that had, and in turn, had a huge impact on our labor force across the state. Pre-pandemic, we were seeing some of the same kinds of issues that we are seeing now. We had a bit of a hiring crisis. It was mostly in the back of the house, related to sort of disparities between wages in the front and back of the house. Now we're seeing hiring and retention crunch. So we had a lot of people in the pandemic leave the industry and they haven't come back, which means we've got operators who are trying to develop talent as quickly as possible to get them into leadership positions in the restaurant. The positive side of that is that there's really never been a better time to have a job in a restaurant. The pay is higher than it's been in memory, honestly. And benefits have increased dramatically. And there's this huge opportunity to move quickly into leadership positions and really see the whole business at work.
Well, let's talk then about the Colorado Pro Start program. This is a program affiliated with the Colorado Restaurant Foundation that aims to sort of bridge this gap between an industry that needs talented people and students who want a career in food or hospitality, but who perhaps don't have the means or the knowledge to get there.
Yeah, so the Colorado Restaurant Foundation, I think from a 10,000-foot view, we exist to help employees in this industry advance and thrive. And we help folks get into the industry, and then we help them advance once they're in the industry. So we are really helping operators right now both find talent and then also have the tools they need to quickly move people up the ranks, because that's really what they're telling us they need right now. One of the programs that does that is the Colorado Pro Start program. We've been doing Colorado Pro Start for more than 20 years. This is not new to the pandemic, or it didn't come out of the pandemic, but it is particularly relevant, I think, right now. Pro Start is a culinary career exploration program. It is a heavy cooking program in high schools, but it's not just cooking. These students are actually really learning the ins and outs of the restaurant industry as well. They're learning how to run a business, how to do everything from marketing to costing to supply chain to sourcing, kind of pulling that all together in a pretty rigorous curriculum so that when they graduate, they're really ready to enter the restaurant industry, typically even at slightly elevated levels from just kind of entry level, I've never had a job, getting in and starting cooking.
So how does Pro Start differ from going through, say, a traditional culinary school in terms of the outcome?
Pro Start in culinary school, it's kindred spirits, if you will. Students who are in Pro Start, they're seeing a very rigorous curriculum along the lines of what they might see in a culinary school environment. I think the difference is first of all, the breadth. ProStart really runs over the last couple of years of high school. And in that time, what we're really trying to do is just expose them to a very broad picture of what the restaurant industry looks like. So we don't just focus on the culinary. It also focuses on kind of front of the house and management and leadership and all the other things that you might need as you advance in this industry. Culinary school is typically a real deep dive into that culinary piece. So, you spend a lot of time learning how to make the basic sauces, learning how to do pastry, learning kind of the different stations of the restaurant. You do that in ProStart, but you balance that against sort of this broader view of what the industry is.
That sounds like quite a well-rounded program. Could you talk about how the program in particular benefits students who may be from marginalized communities or from low-income families?
Yeah. So ProStart is in 44 high schools across the state. So we pull from a very broad population of students within that. It has some major advantages and cost saving advantages for any of the students who are in it, but particularly for marginalized communities or communities who are maybe less likely to, say, go on to college. However, they do choose to go on to college. Many of our schools do dual enrollment with MSU Denver. So students are actually earning college credit for a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to actually go to college and earn those credits so that they can enter, with some classes under their belt and lessen the eventual financial burden of that. They're also gaining a number of industry credentials that are very critical to our industry, or they're very valuable in our industry. And then we also run an apprenticeship program, which is that advancement piece to help people move kind of along that track. And a number of our ProStart students actually go into that because it is a surefire way to advance toward leadership. And for a student who maybe, has some challenges with paying for college or comes from a lower income family, that can be a very quick way up to the higher paid positions in the restaurant.
Mm. And could you briefly talk about how the program is funded?
So ProStart is primarily funded through a partnership with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. We have really built a very symbiotic relationship, but the Colorado Restaurant Foundation's role in ProStart, we're not in the classrooms teaching it. There are teachers that do that. We are really trying to bring the industry into the classroom and give students the opportunity to kind of have these aha moments with hospitality. So CDLE covers a lot of it, but there's a lot outside of that is not covered by that. So we work with industry partners. We have events that fund kind of those needs. And we work with individual schools to fundraise for the programs as well. And that gives them an opportunity to go to competition, to sometimes go to Washington, D.C. and compete on a national level, and then to just meet other people in their areas that are in this industry that might be able to be mentors.
Laura Shunk, thank you so much for talking with me about this today.
Thank you very much for having me.
On Wednesday, November 15th, the Colorado Restaurant Foundation is hosting one of those fundraisers Laura mentioned. NOCO Brews and Bites is a tasting event in Fort Collins to benefit ProStart programs. Find more info about this in our show notes and at kunc.org. That is it for us today here on In the NOCO. We'll be back with you next week. Our theme music was composed by Colorado artist Robbie Reverb. Our producer is Jocelyn Mesa Miranda. Robin Vincent is our executive producer. I'm Erin O'Toole. See you next time.